So in the first part of this two-part series about the Thanksgiving Day Massacre, the Cincinnati Birmingham Bull game, which included several riots and the ramifications were felt through the league for a number of years, the re-emergence of Jacques Demers as a big head coach, the creation of Paul Stewart's major league career, the reaction by Rick Dudley, which actually led to his attitudes as a coach and GM later on, and also the response by the Birmingham side towards Cincinnati. So the first part, again, we talked about a lot of topics were covered, but we're going to more directly talk about the response by the Birmingham side in this podcast. Now, this is a letter from the front page of a Birmingham paper by Coach Glenn Somnor. Now, Somnor didn't like the way that Demers had reacted to it in relation to what he called whining in the press. Now, Glenn Somnor was considered by many at the time one of the most fiercely competitive coaches in WHA history with a bad temper. He got very upset over remarks made by Cincinnati Stinger coach Demers and sports writer Greg Noble of Cincinnati Post in reference to the game in Birmingham on Thanksgiving night 1977. Because the game featured a fight after 24 seconds of a play in the first period, a lot of people felt that the game quickly got out of control and was a black eye for the association. And Somnor eventually sent a letter to a local Birmingham paper, which we're going to read off here, which basically said, I'm right and you're wrong, and that's where it is. Now, this front page letter goes as follows. An open letter to Jacques Demers, coach of the Cincinnati Sissies. In reply to your comments in Greg Noble's story in Cincinnati Post, November 25th, it is too bad your experiment with Willie Trognitz did not work out. He might have helped your team. You openly boasted in newspaper, on radio, and TV about acquiring him after his suspension for life from the IHL for an assault on a player and official. You brought him about the time of our early game in Cincinnati before we made a few trades to strengthen our team. But he took one look at Gilly Bilodeau and took the night off. Several nights later, he apparently thought Quebec's Kurt Brackenberry looked more promising and did a number on him. You gloated in the paper how you sent Willie out to stir things up and give your fans something to talk about when he left the rink. In Birmingham, when we sent our people out to stir things up, all your players, with the exception of Rob Turek, including Trognitz, bailed out, and you, club president Bill DeWitt, and announcer Andy McMillan started screaming bloody murder. My wife was listening to her broadcast, and McWilliams called me, among other things, Cyclops. I did lose an eye playing hockey, but I learned the game. The facts of the matter are we did not start the altercation. Fortoric did it by high-sticking Serge Baudouin. He did not use brass knuckles or switchblades. I was inferred in a story. We did not send a player off the bench. Your team received the extra penalty because Rick Dudley came off the bench and got the automatic double minor in a game misconduct. In regard for me being a big hero in Birmingham for winning the game, I make no claim on that nor attempt to make that impression. I leave it to my players to be heroes by hustle and dedicated play. In regards to me being I do not claim to have decked someone as you did. In reality, all you did was yank a chair away for a security officer, causing him to lose his balance. I understand you later apologized for that. Who restrained you from hitting Gilles Leger, our general manager, as you claim? I don't know, and Gilles doesn't either. Gilles asked me to inform you he's available next time you're in town. Should he be out of town, as he often is, I ask you to drop by and see me before the game. I am always just outside our dressing room, and I'll be glad to accommodate you if you want to hit someone from our organization. In reply to your statement of me not being a hockey fan, I put in my apprenticeship learning to be a hockey man in Minneapolis, New York, Cleveland, St. Louis, Springfield, St. Catharines, University of Minnesota as a player, coach, and GM while you were driving a Pepsi truck around Montreal. I do understand your Pepsi route took you past many outdoor rinks where you apparently picked up your coaching system. In conclusion, I advise you and your pal McWilliams to keep your distance from me. However, if either of you choose to confront me, bring a basket to carry your head home. Signed, sincerely, Glenn Somnor, Birmingham Bulls. So, over the top, dramatic, typical 1970s hockey. But this is again, the reference article he's talking about by Greg Noble in the Cincinnati Post, November 26, 77. The Cincinnati Stingers went to Birmingham for Thanksgiving. They expected to play a hockey game, but ran into a mugging instead. While a man of the cloth read invocation, a quarter Birmingham Bulls stood on the ice waiting to do some punching. That starting lineup included Gilles Bad News Bilodeau, Frank Beaton, Steve Durbano, Bob Stevenson, and former Stinger Georges Bourdois, a real wrecking crew. It took only 24 seconds to start a full-scale brawl, and before the game had ended with the Bulls winning 12-2, the Stingers had been thoroughly intimidated and physically abused. As deplorable as the situation was, the Bulls and their head coach, Glenn Sumner, don't take all the blame. The Stingers must accept a little, and the WHA can shoulder their share. The Stingers let the word out that their own bad boy, Willie Trognitz, would be ready for any trouble. With the lineup of goons the Bulls now sport, that's like waving red. If you go into a bar and say you can lick any man in the house, somebody's going to try you. Birmingham made no pretense of playing hockey before a wild-open crowd. The Bulls went out to push Cincinnati around, and he did their job well, scoring practically at will in the third period, with Cincinnati cowed in submission. Stinger center Rick Leduc said afterwards, "I was skating for my life out there. The sticks were flying. It was just survival." Now, Stinger coach Jacques Demers, under pressure with a losing record and concerned about his wife, Linda, confined in a Cincinnati hospital with illness still not diagnosed, finally went off the deep end in the second period. After beating Jean Marat tangled, Marat coming up with double penalties to give the Bulls another power play as he scored 5 power play goals. The coach erupted. Demers pitched about 20 hockey sticks from the bench on the ice, then jumped out himself to go after referee Peter Moffat. He was restrained by his players and was ejected. But on the way to the dressing room, when he tried to go in the stands after a fan who dumped a drink on him, then even shoved a security guard in the tunnel leading from the ice. "I don't know who the guy was, and when he came at me, I shoved him," said Demers. "I found out who he was, some kind of guard, and I apologized to him." Now, Demers faces a fine. There's a possibility of suspension, but he's ready to take what comes. What I did may call for suspension, but I have to accept it. I just couldn't take any more. Now, Noble continued to say, but it's ironic that the Bulls' tactics were so similar to the Stingers of 3 years ago. When the Stingers entered the league, they were known as goons and even caused a boycott by Winnipeg's Bobby Hull in protest over the rough tactics of the team and coach Terry Slater. Now, on the flight home from Birmingham to Houston, the Stingers players talked about the need to recruit bruisers to patrol the ice to retaliate if things got rough. That brings the WJ right back where it was before the stiffer fighting penalties were introduced last year. Demers called the fiasco in Birmingham a disgrace to hockey, but it reflects directly on the WHA. Now, Bulls owner John Bassett, faced with a franchise that spent a lot of money for hockey players and finished last every year, chose to go another route. The fans in Birmingham like the Bulls' brawling style, and that means Bassett has full houses for his hockey games. Viewed from that angle, playing goons is just good business, but it isn't hockey. So we're getting in a position with the WHA at a time. It was very similar to the senior hockey style of New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, PEI, Quebec of the 1980s and 90s, where you had scorers, you had goons, you had a lot of fights, and the fans were in the stands because there was action, there was fighting. But the thing is, in Major League Hockey, you should be choosing skill over what I call the senior hockey style. There's nothing bad with senior hockey, but if you're going out expected to fight twice and score twice to keep your job, it's not really mentally good for you. In 2021, thank God, with helmets and better equipment and stuff, you can barely get somebody's helmet off to start a fight, let alone fight twice or 3 times. But the stiffer penalties and fighting majors really didn't impact, because by 1977-78, which this occurred that season, the WHA was pretty well on its last legs, unfortunately. But Jacques Demers has had a lot of trouble in his life. He's been sick, coming out with his illiteracy problem. His political ramifications, sitting in the Senate. I think he was independent for a little while. But Demers is a stand-up guy. He just plays for what he's heart. But I know one thing. If he wouldn't have coached the Stingers so emotionally in 77, he would not won the Cup with Montreal in 93. People would go above and beyond for Jacques Demers, the typical player's coach. And I tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. You didn't see these teams on TV very often, but I can imagine. We talked about hometown heroes. The WHA is the only league I can ever remember where it was small and big at the same time. Sure, it was a big league, U.S. and Canada wide, but within their own regions, they were just as big as the NHL teams were, but he didn't have that national presence that would have allowed it to survive. You saw no gear at the WHA. There was no hats. There was no shirt. I went to school, middle school, and grade school, middle school in Northern New Brunswick. You couldn't find anything. You could find tons of Expos in Montreal, Canadiens, and Toronto Maple Leafs. You could even see Detroit or Boston stuff. But you had a good product. It just needed to be refined. And Jacques Demers should have been the face of the WHA in the late 70s, and it never came about. And because he knew we were dying, and John Bassett had his own multiple problems because he was thinking about getting into football, and that's where Donald Trump came in, that full craziness. Anyway, we'll leave it like that. So this is part 2 of our mini-series on the Thanksgiving Day Massacre. Please let me know what a like, comment, score, and subscribe, what you think, what you like to see. And if anybody out there has any tape of that game, please post a link, because I've been looking for this for quite some time, and I can find a needle in a haystack, but I can't. With this, there's no needles, no haystack. There's just legends. Thanks for listening. Bye.